I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and this awesome gorilla is the new pattern in the Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. When I say new, it is April 1st, 2024, and if you're already in the club, you should have already received a link to download this pattern. If you join the club anytime in April 2024, this is the pattern that you're going to get instantly. And if you're watching this video and it's well past April 2024, you can find the pattern at shinyhappyworld.com. So here's how to make him. Okay, this is the video showing you how to put together the gorilla if you do have a light box. So first, just a quick overview of my light box setup. I've got my light box on, turned up as bright as it'll go. I have my placement guide, and then I have a clear silicone mat. So I've cut all of my pieces out, and I just cut them out on the solid line. You can ignore all of the dotted lines, but you do need to transfer these solid lines that will be a stitching line, not a placement guide for the applique. And to do that, we're just going to set it right down on the light box, and I'm just using a fine point Sharpie, and I'm just going to transfer that line. And on this one, I am also going to give this gorilla the eyelashes that are optional, but I'm going to do it on this one, so I want to transfer those lines as well. And you just want to do that so that the lines are on the fabric side, because once you peel the paper backing off, you will lose those guides. So one other thing that I need to point out for the gorilla, so this is a massive guy. Gorillas are just huge and they're big and chunky. And so I wanted to make sure that his shoulders go all the way off the edges of the blocks. I'm going to set this up on my block, so what I call snapshot style. So I want it to look like I took a picture of the gorilla and I just zoomed in on his face. And on most animals, that just means that their neck is what is cropped at the bottom of the photo. So it looks like their body continues below the neck. But gorillas are so broad that this also means that the shoulders are going to continue past the sides all the way to the edges of the block. So I want all of those square edges to be caught in my seam allowance. So when I sew the blocks together, it has the illusion of this is a snapshot that I've taken, that I've cropped it out. If you don't want that look on yours, you can just leave the shoulder piece off and just float the head in the middle of the block. But if you are using the shoulder piece, there are two things that I need to point out. One is my blocks are 10 inches wide. This paper is 8.5 inches wide, and it also does not print all the way to the edges. There are very few printers, home printers, that will print all the way to the edges, but they all cut things off in different places. So just be aware that the placement guide does not go all the way to the edges of the block. And also for the pattern piece, I printed it, I laid it out on the block so it goes to the full 11 inches of the paper, but again, your printer's going to cut that off. It's not going to print all the way to the top and bottom edge. And so I've continued it here. You can see that's what these pink lines are. So where I've continued it right to the edge of the paper so that I am cutting this a full 11 inches wide. And that's wider than my block needs to be, but that'll allow me to put it in there, trim it down to 10.5 inches wide, and then when I sew it together, it'll be 10 inches wide, and all those edges will be nice and neatly tucked in your seam allowance. So just a little bit of preparation to be aware of. So now we are going to start with piece number 1, because when you have a light box, those numbers tell you what piece is what, but they also tell you what order you lay them down in. So see how it does not, the placement guide doesn't go all the way to the edges. So I'm just going to line this up with the top edges of that placement guide. So those are lined up there, and the rest just kind of continues. Now we are going to do piece number 2, which is his big, giant, big-brained head. And we are going to just lay that down. So all of the fussy pieces you can see in here. All right, now these are very dark pieces, and if you have trouble with the light, the lines showing through, you'll just need to push this down until it makes contact. When it makes contact, the light shines through much better. So if you're having trouble seeing through, just try that. Just touch it until it makes contact. So next up is 3, where his eyes are going to be. And I used a slightly lighter gray for his eyes. All of these are from my Elephant Blenders collection, which is all of my gray blenders from white to black. So I've just taken the darkest dark grays and blacks and used those for my gorilla. And I just used different prints for all of them to help distinguish between those parts. So number 4 is the piece where his mouth is going to go. Again, make contact, and that shows right through. Okay. And now there's a lot of ovals in there. And so this shows me 5 and 6 are the eyes. So I'm going to do 5 and 6. Because the eyes are, of course, slightly different ovals than the nostrils. So here's 6. The eyes are just like a little bit of a wider oval, little friendlier looking. And then 7 and 8 are the nostrils. And again, I have to touch that down so that I can see those lines through it. All right. Now, I am going to very carefully lift up this whole thing, carry it over to my ironing board, fuse all the pieces in place right on the silicone mat. Just follow the directions for whatever brand of fusible adhesive you use. I use Heat and Bond Light in all of my quilts. Then I'm going to let that cool, and then I'll peel it off the silicone mat and I can place it in my block. And when I place it in my block, I'm going to line this straight edge up with the raw edge at the bottom of my block, and these edges will line up or be a little bit inside, depending on how wide I cut my block. So this will just be all chunked down into the bottom of your block. Fuse that in place. Then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and outline all of these pieces just to create further definition between them and make it so it can be laundered. And then I will bring it back here and show you this finished gorilla and 2 other versions that I made. All right, and here is one of the finished gorillas that I made. So I made 3, and usually I make them with a lot of different colors, but this time I did make them all black, weirdly. I'm not sure why I didn't do fantasy colors, but it would also work really well if you wanted to do some fantasy colors. Some of the eggplant blenders would work great for a really dark purple, and also a really dark blue will read as black if somebody is, if you're making a quilt that's a little bit more fantasy colors. But here's one that I did on a bright blue background, but I've got a couple of other versions. So this is a version that I made where I did stitch the eyelashes. So that is an option for you. The eyelashes, you can either stitch them in there or ignore them, whichever one you want. This one's on a nice coral colored background. And then I did one more. And this is a version that I did on a bright, bright green background. I'm working on a collection of all different primates that are going to be in their realistic colors, but on very bright, kind of crayon bright colors in the background blocks. So those are my 3 versions of the gorilla block. That's the April pattern for the Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and I will see you next time.